Hello everybody and welcome back to another Marvel Crisis Protocol tournament recap. It's actually been a little bit of a break since the last one of these. It just hasn't really been as active of a tournament scene lately, so I haven't been able to make as many of these because there hasn't been as many events, but thankfully it looks like it's starting to ramp back up. I've got a couple more already lined up for the next few weeks, so hopefully we'll be seeing more of these, and hopefully I will stop being dumb and I'll start remembering to take pictures of the tables between rounds, give you guys a better picture of what's going on. So unfortunately, I did forget again with this one. It's, obviously during the event, I'm focused on the gameplay at the end of the day. So wasn't thinking too much about it, but anyways, that's something we're going to hopefully be adding in for future videos, is just kind of pictures of the table between the rounds to kind of help jog my memory on the games and specifically what happened, but also just to kind of make it easier to for you guys to kind of see what's going on between the rounds and the exact positionings and stuff on the table, because I can only do it so much justice with my own descriptions. But the Battle for Breath event is the one we're talking about here today. This is Battle for Breath MCP 2023. So basically, this is a charity Marvel Crisis Protocol tournament. It's in support of Cystic Fibrosis Canada, which is a really great cause. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. There was really good turnout. I think we had something like 22 players. It was originally 24. A couple people had to drop, but yeah, it was a fantastic event, and there was a lot of really good players here. Competition was super high. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna break it down. First of all, I'm gonna give a shout out here to Greg. He came in first place, and he was running a Guardians roster. I'm gonna put it up on the screen real quick for you guys if anyone is interested. But yeah, looks like a relatively standard Guardians roster with a few interesting splashes in there. Obviously, Cosmic Ghost Rider being a monster that he is right now, very powerful piece. Thankfully, there wasn't too many of that model running around, but Greg did manage to pull first place with it there. So congratulations to him in that regard. So for myself, I ended up coming in fifth place here, which I'm quite happy with. I feel like I did reasonably well here, although we'll talk about it a little bit more. But I feel like the dice kind of dictated a lot of my games, which is a little unfortunate. Obviously, I don't think I was playing poorly necessarily or anything like that, but it would have been nice if some of them had been a little less swingy than they were. So we'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, Reed, also member of the channel, who you'll know if you watch any of the battle reports on the channel here. He also was in the event, and he did reasonably well as well. He was bringing X-Men, and he came in ninth place. So again, out of 22 players, not too bad. And yeah, we're going to go ahead and I'm just going to jump right into the games and my roster here. So if I go ahead and I open up this here, this was my list. I've brought something very similar to this in the past, but I have made some pretty big changes since the last time I talked about this list because, well, like I said, it's been a while, so I've had a lot of time to kind of tinker with and play around with this list. So I'm not going to go too in-depth on a lot of the kind of staple characters here because I've talked about them a lot in the past. Steve Rogers, Sam Wilson, Hulk, Iron Man, Luke Cage, those are all kind of models that have been in this list forever, and their roles haven't really changed. They're all fantastic models in Avengers. They all do really good things, and yeah, they're all exceptionally good models, and I'm not doing anything particularly crazy or unusual with any of them, so I think they're relatively standard. I have Widow in as my 2 threat now instead of Wong. For the longest time I was running Wong, but now with Cap's new card Battle Plan here, I just haven't been feeling the need to have Wong as much. I have condition removal through Battle Plan, so hasn't felt like it's something that's quite as important as it used to be. And yeah, so I switched out to Widow. She didn't actually get run today, and now I'm actually kind of wondering if this list even needs a 2 threat or if I can maybe sub her out for another 4 threat or a 3 threat. Particularly possibly someone who could help me if I'm up against a team with a lot of extract steals, so maybe something like a Voodoo or something like that. So we're not sure. I'll think on it some more. I did also bring the new Captain America First Avenger, Steve Rogers. So I was trying him out for this tournament. So far, I've been a little cold on him with many of the games that I've had. His dice haven't really been too great to me, so he hasn't really had a chance to pop off or do anything particularly impressive, which has been a bit of a shame. I've also found the range 3 versus the range 4 really does start to stack up on him. But overall, I do think he has an interesting leadership, so I wanted to have him as kind of a pivot if I needed him. And as we'll see when I get into the games, yeah, he was definitely a very, very relevant pivot. Next up, we have Gwen Stacy here, Ghost Spider. Gwen under Steve can be kind of stupid, and the main idea here was to be running mostly under Steve Rogers, although honestly, Gwen is just a stupid model in general. I could easily run her under Sam or even Steve 3, and I think she could do a lot of work. She's got just some amazing control abilities with the pull and the lifesaver to kind of help keep your own models alive. She can be really, really powerful and just a fantastic piece to have on the table. So yeah, I was trying her out. This was actually the first event I went to with her in the list, but I played around with her a little bit at locals, and I just think she's a really, really solid flex piece in there. So I've been enjoying putting her in. Next, we have Crimson Dynamo. Basically, recently I ran into Leland over at Aegis Brand Studios. I was playing a game against him, and it was just Avengers versus Shield, and he had a Crimson Dynamo, and it was absolutely running riot on my team. And I was kind of like, by the end of it, that model's really, really good, and I think it would be super stupid under Steve Rogers. So I went and I bought one for myself, and yeah, he is exactly as stupid as I expected him to be. He is fantastic under Steve. For one power, you can make your opponent reroll two of their attack dice into you, which is absolutely crazy, especially when you're stacking it with other defensive tech like bodyguards or adding dice or counting blanks or all those other things that I can do up here. So just a really, really fantastic model. Great at denying triggers that are really annoying and stuff like that. So yeah, I love him. He did a lot of work here. And then lastly, we have Captain Marvel Cosmic Avenger here. So this is, of course, the new Carol Danvers. And the main reason why I brought her was I was having a conversation with one of my locals, and they suggested, hey, because I was talking about ways of kind of fighting Cosmic Ghost Rider, because I was worried there was going to be a lot of them at this event, and I didn't really have a great answer to them. And one of my locals suggested Captain Marvel, and I was like, hey, you know what? That sounds like it might be a good idea. She's got a reverse pierce on the energy attack and the mystic for what it's worth if the spender does come up. She's got 7 health pool. She's immune to incinerate, so she's not going to be preyed on too hard by really anything CGR is doing. So I mean, yeah, she seemed like a pretty solid choice for that, and I never got to actually test her in that specific use case, but wow, did she make a good impression on me? Because this was the first time I really ran her outside of, a couple games where it was just trying out the new core box stuff. So this was my first time running her kind of as her own piece, and yeah, she felt really, really good to be running with the rest of my team. So she's definitely going to be sticking around for a while, I think, because she earned her place really well today. Going into tactics, this is pretty much identical to what I've brought in the past. I do have, a lot of the same things. So Brace for Impact and Indomitable are still my restricteds. I still personally find for this list that those are the most valuable ones. Indomitable is just absolutely huge to keeping my bodyguards and stuff like that in the right place, or even now Crimson Dynamo. Escort to Safety is just a valuable card if I have anyone sitting on a back point already. It kind of doubles up with what Gwen is doing, so I try not to bring them at the same time, although it is always funny, Escort to Safety and Gwen. So, Gwen saving everyone else, and if they try to kill her, I can save her. Helios Laser and Heroes for Hire are basically just auto-includes with Iron Man and Luke Cage, respectively. They're both fantastic cards, and I find I rarely go a game without them. No matter the cost, I think is a solid card. I was considering taking it out when I took Iron Fist out of the list, but I do think there's a lot of cases where it could come up and save me in a big way. Even little things like being able to use it to add some damage to Hulk so we can get some more dice going. Or, with Captain Marvel now on her flip side where she doesn't have any way of gaining power, being able to, take a little bit of damage to still be able to use those spenders and stuff can be a big deal. So I think it's solid there. Recalibration Matrix, I have a lot of attacks that throw a lot of dice, so sometimes being able to reroll those can be pretty crucial. If I really, really need that trigger on Hulk, or Carol needs the throw on her spender or something like that. Could be solid with both of those. Also just, of course, defensively, if my opponent spikes super hard, being able to kind of be like, okay, let's try that again, see how that goes. So obviously that's a solid card that I run there. Battle plan I already kind of mentioned. This was my replacement for Wong, so this is how I get rid of conditions. This one I'm a little colder on than I was going into this event. Unfortunately, I'm just finding a lot of the time that Steve either isn't in a great position or he doesn't want to be the activation. or he's just a little bit power starved to be playing this all the time. So we'll see. I think it's going to stay on the list at least, but I don't know if I'm going to be bringing it as often as I did this event. Then we have Avengers Assemble. This is just one of the best cards in the game. Obviously, I'm bringing it with Avengers. And lastly, Stark Armory, which honestly I forgot was in my 10 for this event, so it never actually hit the table, but it's a very good card. Personally, I don't think my list appreciates it quite as much as, you know, something like a shield list or something like that. So I didn't end up hitting the table with it. It probably won't end up staying as a member of my 10 unless I start seeing a lot of really good use out of it. But I just don't think it applies to my list quite as well as it does for others. But it is a very good card, so I don't mind having it there while I don't really have anything else I would prefer. Going into crises, there hasn't been any crazy changes here. I wanted to kind of push towards doing SAM leadership a little bit more often, so I was forcing myself to put some wider scenarios in there, such as Infinity Formula and Senators. So I've done that. I'm keeping hammers in there, which can be a little swingy, but I personally found I don't love many of the other extracts that are gonna be pushing me around or stuff like that. So I figured I'd stick to hammers for now, just because I don't really know what I would like to switch it out with. I thought about Montesi, but that can kind of punish Steve and Sam a little bit, and to some degree even models like Hulk. So I didn't want to go too hard into something like that. Researchers, great for my list. I've got a lot of control things. I went with Senators specifically as my kind of wider extract here, just because I have a good amount of characters who are long movers and things like that, so they can get to it in a single move and still make an attack or something if they need to. Um, and just, I don't really rely on double moving very often in this list. I have a lot of characters who can do kind of out of movement movements. So stuff like Hulk with Gamma Leap, Crimson Dynamo with his little place thingy. I mean, that's really the main ones I can think of here. For the most part, the others don't. I have little other things like Luke Cage with Heroes for Hire can kind of jump around, but yeah, Sam on his spender, I guess. There's a few of them here and there. Personally, I just find it's something that doesn't seem to punish me too much, and with Sam, I am capable of going relatively wide, so I think it's something that my list can play into reasonably well, and today I think it proved that very fairly well. Infinity Formula is just one of my favorite maps. It's a B map, which I think a lot of my characters like. I think generally characters with range 4 and stuff like that tend to appreciate that. I typically try to run Sam there, and I'm running models like Iron Man, who really likes the extra power, just to guarantee he's got Friday AI online. Captain Marvel appreciates it, helps her get into binary a little bit faster. Gwen definitely appreciates it if I'm not running Steve. Same for Crimson Dynamo for that matter, just that extra little power to make sure their kid is online. So just in general, I think it's really good for a lot of my models here. Gamma Wave is great because it's the same thing as Research Station. I have a lot of really good control effects, so I can just kind of lock down the middle of that and say this is going to be mine every turn. And lastly, intrusions, similar logic there. It's just, there's only 3 points. I can teleport between them quickly with models like Hulk if I want, which can be really nice for just delivering him places. So yeah, I just think I have a lot of models that kind of like that scenario. So yeah, that's the rundown on the list there. We're gonna go ahead and get into the games, and I'm gonna try for the games. I don't think I'm gonna go quite as in depth as I have in the past. I'm not gonna go for a round by round thing because ultimately, at the end of the day, like I said, I think the games were a little bit dicier this time around than a lot of my previous things. So I don't think there's quite as much that can be really specifically talked to in terms of like turn by turn and activation by activation things. B, honestly, I think these videos in the past have been very long, and I'd like to be able to make them a little bit shorter, respect your guys' time a little bit more. And of course, I'm recording this the day after the event. It's late at night, and I'm quite frankly, my voice is already a little bit dead from being at the event all day, and I'm quite tired because it's been a relatively long day, although a really fun one. This was a fantastic event. So, anyways, round one, I got paired with Reed. Of course, we drove an hour and a half to get there, and the first thing we did was play against each other. So we got paired. We'd done this matchup a million times. So it was Avengers versus X-Men on Spider Infected and Gamma Wave. So obviously the Gamma Wave came from me, the Spider Infected from him, because I would never play Spider Infected. That would be terrible. The final score ended up being 16-14 in Reed's favor with 17 threat. Now, Reed and I talked about this game a fair bit later on. See if I can. It's just going to try to bring me to his player profile, isn't it? That's not what we wanted. Let's see if we can pull up his list here. Uh, where is he? There he is. So Reed was bringing this list here. Leave it up on the screen for a second in case anyone wants to see it. But in terms of what he was actually bringing here, he brought Beast, Colossus, Rogue, Storm, and Pyro. Of course, Pyro being a really good answer to some things like Hulk, and he's taken Beta Ray out of his list since it's last been featured here. So Pyro's kind of one of his main answers into that now. And of course, stuff like Colossus being able to take the hit really well. So I was relatively happy with my kind of matchup into that there, because if I go ahead and I go back to my list here, what I ended up bringing was I brought Steve, I had Hulk, I had Iron Man, and I had Crimson Dynamo. And this was the first match where Dynamo really got to prove his worth. Right out the gate, Dynamo's getting some really sweet beams off. I was putting some good damage into models like Beast. I had a nice early, I think, shock on Pyro and Colossus, I would assume. Colossus took a couple damage, Storm took a couple damage. I was just getting some really, really nice early beams out with Crimson Dynamo, getting him online, so he was really proving his worth here on that EMAP. All the spider infecteds were grabbed pretty much right out the gate. Rogue, I think, grabbed one of his side ones, and Beast grabbed his other one because they were both models that were capable of kind of getting back into the middle after that. On my end, I think I had Captain America grab one of them, and it might actually have been Dynamo who grabbed the other, and then the beam came the next round. I'm not 100% sure off the top of my head. But I know first round his Pyro did get to do some Pyro things. He put out the conditions on Mr. Hulk, and there was unfortunately nothing I could really do about that. I couldn't wait to go with Hulk until after he'd already gone with Pyro, because unfortunately he had the last act in the round, and of course that's how that's going to play out. That said, I was able to secure the middle point on the first round, so we were able to keep at least equal scoring, and I had some. Going into the next round, I was able to get some good beams out with Dynamo, and get some early damage and some shocks out, which was looking really, really good. Unfortunately, things started to kind of fall apart after that a little bit. Beast kept surviving on 1 health. I brought him down to 1 with a couple energy beams from Dynamo, but then I just couldn't finish him off with anyone. I tried, I think, plinking a shield into him. I think I had Hulk try to throw some stuff and punch at him. He had some defensive tech going on there. There was some Colossus bodyguards and things like that involved. Hulk ends up taking down Pyro during this activation, and I think I might have ended up flipping Storm, but unfortunately I wasn't able to deal the last damage to Beast, and he was able to kind of get some free extra points out of that. I also misplayed, I don't know if it was the second round or the third round, but I had Iron Man on my back point, and unfortunately, because he wasn't really contesting me on the middle, Iron Man didn't have much to shoot. So what I ended up doing with Iron Man was I had him kind of move up and try to shoot. I think Beast, actually. I think I had him try to finish off Beast, and what unfortunately that allowed was Rogue ended up double moving onto my back point. So obviously Rogue ended up diving very deep into my side of the board, which left her kind of cut off from support. But the unfortunate side for me is he scored the bonus point for collecting my back point, which obviously wasn't too great for me. So we went into the next round, and Hulk finally decided to pop off. We took Pyro off the table before he got another activation. We did a bunch of damage to a bunch of the other characters. I think we finally ended up dazing Beast. We dazed Storm, and I think we also dazed Colossus this turn, which was huge. Going into the next round, or actually this round 3 here, I think I also ended up Helios lasering Rogue, so I think I pretty much downed his entire team here, and I was able to score up a bunch there, but unfortunately from the previous round where I hadn't been able to quite confirm any of my kills, he was able to score up well ahead of me, so it was kind of just balancing it back out. And then going into the final round, I unfortunately had a similar problem with Beast, where once again I was able to get him down to 1 health pretty quickly with some energy beams, but he ended up surviving on 1 health, contesting his back point and a bunch of stuff like that. He also had a relatively decent attrition swing here. He was able to deal some good punches into a few of my models like Iron Man, and I think he at some point before Pyro went down, he lit pretty much my entire team, if not my entire team, on fire. So this round he ends up taking out Crimson Dynamo, I think, went down, and Iron Man and Hulk took a chunk of damage. Hulk was not really in any real danger of dying most of this game, but he was conditioned down really hard. And then we go into the final round where unfortunately, Beast again scored him an extra point here. So at this point, he's gotten like 3 points out of Beast that I should have probably been able to deny just because I couldn't seem to get anything to finish him off. I do finally finish Beast off in the final round here, but unfortunately at this point it's a little bit too late because all he needs to score is like 2 points to win, and I wasn't quite able to deny Rogue or Colossus. I think Rogue ended up dummying Iron Man and taking Cap down with him. So at this point, I'd already gone with Hulk. I think Crimson Dynamo might have already gone at this point as well because it took me a lot to take down Beast for some reason. So he was able to just kind of hold on to those last few points and score out the game there. But it was a really close game nonetheless. There was a lot of stuff going on that definitely a few points of the game where, as much as I'm annoyed that I couldn't get that final damage on Beast, there were a couple things I should have done differently to kind of deny that. I mean, just simple things like not walking off of my back point with Iron Man and letting Rogue just kind of walk back there and have it. That was definitely a huge mistake on my part. So definitely things I could have done better. And unfortunately, kind of lesson learned here. But it was also a huge case for why Crimson Dynamo is good for this list because he did so much work just being in the middle of everything. He was able to get off a lot of really good beams. He put out a lot of shocks, which really slowed the attrition into my team. And yeah, he was just an absolute workhorse of a model here. He did a lot of really good work in this first game. So overall, I was pretty happy with him. I was really disappointed with my Hulk because my Hulk really failed me in that second round, not taking much down. And then even the third round, I think most of the stuff that actually went down ended up going down to Dynamo instead. So it was a little disappointing there. But that was the game, so we went on to round two, and of course at this point, I lost the first round, so now I'm just here to have a good time. I'm not really expecting to come out of it super high, but things started going pretty well for me. I was paired up against Mark here, and unfortunately, I don't believe he had his list shared here. Yeah, unfortunately not. So I can't quite show off what his full list was. But I'll go off memory as best as I can. We were playing on Hammers and Intrusions. And for myself, I know I was bringing Captain America again. So I had Steve, I had Cap. I was bringing, let me think about this. I was bringing Crimson Dynamo again. I had Hulk, so that brings me up to 14. I'm going to think about this one for a second. So I've actually been thinking about this for a minute now, and there's just a quick pause in the video. It says I logged the game as being a 19 threat game, but the more I think of it, I think I was just Crimson Dynamo, Iron Man, Hulk, and Cap. I'm having a hard time remembering who... Oh, no, you know what it was? There was no Iron Man. It wasn't Iron Man. It was instead Carol. I'm thinking of a different game where I had Iron Man and Crimson Dynamo deployed together, but no, this one was Carol, Iron Man, or not Iron Man, Carol, Crimson Dynamo, Hulk, and Steve Rogers, Captain America. He was playing Fury Jr. So he obviously had Fury in the grunts. He had new Iron Man in his list, the four threat other Shield leader Iron Man, and then who else did he have? He had a Hawkeye. Hawkeye was very relevant in the early game, and he had an Agent Venom. I'm gonna think about that real quick and make sure I've got everyone. Right, I almost totally forgot he was also splashing Hela in the list here. So game started out and I was able to take a nice early lead on the secures. We were playing Hammers and Intrusions, and he went first. I think I won the prio roll, but I passed and he ended up going first. or something like that. I don't remember exactly how it went, but basically he had Fury and the grunts walk up, and the grunts were able to grab the hammer on the side that I had Crimson Dynamo deployed on, and so he took that hammer, and then I ended up going on the right side. I went with Hulk because I didn't end up deploying Hulk centrally since he wasn't able to grab the middle hammer just the way the terrain on the board was. He wasn't allowed to grab that hammer without moving, so I had him deploy on the right side. I figured he'd kind of be a safer one for the outskirts, and if I really needed him somewhere else, it was intrusion, so I could always just portal him over and accept that I drop a hammer for it. But so I walked him over to that point, grabbed up a hammer, and just kind of sat there. He ended up having Hela go, and Hela spiked a really good claim soul into him, did something like 5 damage to him right in the opening turn, which was a little rough because he did have Helios Laser in his list. I was a little worried about having a Helios Laser to Hulk's face at some point, so that was a little scary. But it wasn't too bad. I ended up having Cap walk into the middle, and Carol went and joined him. He had Hawkeye pick up a hammer and throw some dice at Cap. I think he did some okay damage. He also had Iron Man do the same. Iron Man just walked forward and blasted. Again, got a little bit of blink here and there. Nothing crazy. I don't think Cap came out of this with more than like 2 damage on him, and he was very hesitant to hit Captain Marvel. I think he might have punched her once for like 2 damage or something like that, but he didn't want to give her too much power, so he kind of slowed down on it after that, which was reasonable. And then on the left side of the board, I had Crimson Dynamo go up. He beamed down the shield agents, but of course they didn't. What's it called? They didn't drop it where I would be able to grab it because the shield agent gets to choose where their own objectives drop. So they dropped it back, and I think it ended up being picked up by Agent Venom. The same beam also went into Fury. I think I might have got 1 or 2 damage on Fury, but I don't think I got the shock or anything too meaningful like that. So it was just kind of some blink. But what ended up happening here was because most of his characters decided to punch mine. I ended up scoring all 3 intrusions and a 50% on the hammer, so I had a really nice scoring lead going into the next round, which was really good for me. Because I was able to just kind of push that advantage and kind of say like, okay, well, I have scored above, so now I just need to maintain this. I don't actually have to push for any of your things. You need to come to me, and that can be a little awkward as Shield because obviously they've got a lot of things they want to be doing from a further range. So this map also wasn't very great for them. A few notable things that happened in this round. Hela basically decided she didn't want to deal with fighting Hulk. I had Hulk go and try to kill her, and like he did basically like 2 damage to her or something like that. Which was really disappointing. Hulk just kind of whiffed into her super hard. I think I even got a spender in there, and it was just like, yeah, no, nothing's going for this. So he just was kind of like, well, we're not going to deal with Hulk. We're going to walk away from this while we can. So he walked her over to the middle of the board and started trying to play around there. I think he might have portaled over to where Crimson Dynamo was hanging out and tried to be relevant over there. For what it's worth, Carol picked up my hammer on the first turn. So he was chilling Hella over there. I don't think he got anything too meaningful in on Crimson Dynamo with her, maybe a damage or two. But Dynamo again in this list is just an absolute defensive wall. He pays 1 power, he's going to reroll 2 of your dice, so you're not getting your triggers against him very often, and he's he's already got solid defensive dice with damage reduction, so he's definitely a bit of a monster to take down. This round he also ends up Crimson Dynamo ends up dazing Agent Venom, which was pretty nice. I mean, 2 5 dice energy beams will do that. So I believe I took down Agent Venom that turn, which was sweet because I was able to steal that hammer, and I think I ended up putting that on Carol, who actually that's what it was I only got one beam into Dynamo because I was trying to hit Dynamo, or not Dynamo, Agent Venom. I was trying to hit Agent Venom and Hela, and he ended up having Eye in the Sky to get Agent Venom out of the first one. So I only was able to tap Agent Venom once, but then I ended up having Captain Marvel kind of run over to that side of the board. She got powered up by something, I think, or no, she just walked, I think. She took a step that direction and blasted a 5 dice energy attack to finish Venom off. Succeeded in that, also got the pursuit trigger, so I was able to walk her over to that portal, which was really useful, and she stole that second hammer, so she was sitting on 2 hammers and a decent amount of health still. And because, she'd been able to attack a character who had such low energy defense, she was also sitting on a good amount of power. So she was in a really good spot for next round. Captain America decided to do something a little stupid here. He threw a shield at Iron Man and got the ricochet, or he didn't get the ricochet on the first one, but he got the ricochet on the second one because that was all he did was he threw two shields. And the ricochet goes into a full health Hawkeye on the back point holding a hammer, or no back point, but like where the hammer would have been. And he just took him right out, and that was kind of brutal. I dropped the hammer kind of in a like awkward back way position. So if he wanted to go for it, he'd be wasting a move action kind of going the other way, since I didn't really have anyone who could dive for it at the moment. So I put it generally in the direction of Hulk, and it's just kind of like, yeah, you can have this if you really want it. And then he ended up having Iron Man go for it and just tried to plink some damage onto Hulk, which he might have got one or two. It was nothing too huge, but I think at this point I burned Indomitable also, so Hulk would be able to stay on a point, but nothing too crazy there. So we ended up going to scoring, and I'd stolen one of his hammers, which was huge, but I was still also getting most of the intrusions at this point. So I score something like 6 points, and we go into another round. So into the next round here. We're on, I think, round 3 roughly at this point, and he basically decides it's got to be all in on Carol, and I kind of was like, yeah, I gotta agree with this. Like, Carol's got to do a bunch of work here, and she did. Carol goes binary, and I think she takes down Hela. She takes Agent Venom off the board, if I remember correctly, and she's just kind of chilling there with, she's done her job. She's pretty much secured that side of the board. Fury, I think, does some work into possibly Crimson Dynamo. I don't remember exactly how that played out over there, but Fury was around. He was trying to plink some damage in, and he was just having a hard time really getting anything significant through, again, with Crimson Dynamo adding those rerolls. And I think at this point, because Captain Marvel was starting to get a little low on health, I ended up walking Captain America over to that side of the board. I completely abandoned the middle point, just to kind of have, or maybe I portaled him over there, I don't remember. But just to have some extra bodyguard potential around there. So now I have bodyguard and Crimson Dynamo to help keep Carol alive, because she was holding two hammers. So of course she was quite valuable to me at this point. Here, once again, we have Hulk with the incredible whiffs that he was having today. He decided to dive Iron Man, see if he could pick up a second hammer for himself. So I might have even burned Avengers Assemble for this, if I remember correctly. But I get into Iron Man with 2 attacks, and I throw the first 8 dice, or actually I think it was 9 dicer because I had a hammer, and I had at least 5 damage from Hela. So 9 dicer into Iron Man, and I get a big fat 0, which, is super disappointing there. So I go for it again, and once again, I think I got like 1 this time, which was exactly enough for me to pick up the size 4 beside him and toss it at his face. But he also blocked pretty well on that one, so he ends up being totally fine. So, I have Hulk pretty much full commit on this. Like, he's completely abandoned his point at this point, and I got like 2 damage on Iron Man or something really small like that. Like, I know it wasn't hugely significant, so that was a little disappointing. I ended up by the end of this round scoring exactly 5 points, which put me to 15, or maybe it was 4 points. I don't remember. Might have missed something in one of the previous rounds here, but I ended up going to 15 points, and then the next round basically just things kind of continued the same way. Hela tried to deal with, or actually I think, did I have Prio here? Yeah, I did have Prio. Hela tried to get away with Eye in the Sky because I tried to kill her with Carol, who at this point Carol was bleeding on 1 health, so I was in a bit of an awkward situation where I basically needed to, if I wanted to get all the points on that side of the board, which at this point I did only need 1 more point to win, but if I wanted all the points on that side of the board just for victory point tiebreakers and things like that, I needed to deal with Hela, but then I also needed to deal with Fury, who was chilling there. So Hela at this point only had 2 souls sitting on her, so I was like, now is the best time to deal with her. But with some fancy Eye in the Skies plays and things like that, he did make it really annoying for me, but I did eventually succeed. I mean, New Carol was just such an absolute monster here. So she took down she took down Hela. She ended up putting some plink into Fury with just kind of like splash damage from Warbird attacks. I think I might have also thrown something at Fury as well. I know I had Fury relatively low at this point. He was on like 2 or 3 health. And then she bled out and dropped 2 hammers, and now he kind of had a choice of, does he activate Iron Man and try to deal with my Hulk, because my Hulk is in Iron Man's face, and if he kills Iron Man, then that's another hammer for me. Or does he activate Fury and pick up those hammers and then try to deal with, Crimson Dynamo and Captain America over there, who are both still sitting reasonably okay for health. I think Crimson Dynamo might have actually flipped up at some point here. Like, I think the round before he might have went down. So I think he elects to go with Mr. Fury, and he picks up the hammers and tries to shank me, and unfortunately just nothing really comes of it for him. I have Captain America taking the hits, and he is still on his front side, so no blanks or anything like that, but I also have Crimson Dynamo forcing him to reroll, so he's not allowed to get any pierce triggers or anything like that. So unfortunately he doesn't really get anything through on that front, and it just kind of plays out from there. I take down Fury, I steal the hammers back. Hulk takes down Iron Man, he gets his hammer and jumps back over to a point. And then his Hawkeye is like chilling on the middle point, and he can't really do anything. He's injured already, so I just end up having my Steve Rogers just double moves, or no, he portals over to Hawkeye's point and just takes that from him because he's still healthy. So I end up scoring all the points on the table that round, and I just go up to 22, which is obviously a obviously a really really big win for tiebreakers and stuff. And I think it's at least part of why my final placement was really good despite having a round one loss. So, but it was a good game. My opponent took the dice pretty well considering how bad they were. Because he definitely had some situations where, I mean, I've been on the other side of that where, you can't get anything through, and it's not even that far against statistics because it is stuff like Crimson Dynamo, but it's just frustrating to be able to, make all these attacks and just have them go nowhere. So I have definitely been on the other side of that, and yeah, that's an annoyance that Crimson Dynamo is really really good at creating. So that was round two, and now I'm going 1-1, so I'm feeling pretty good about things so far. And I go into round three, and I got paired against the one of the only other players at the event who actually had Cosmic Ghost Rider in his list. So of course I was terrified of this, and we ended up rolling up for priority and stuff, and we got Senators and Infinity Formula. So this was a bit of an awkward situation for me because obviously Senators is really fast scoring, which is fantastic against CGR because you want to be able to score up as quickly as humanly possible. On the other side, you can't run away from him on there, so it's a little bit of an awkward situation there. But we'll go ahead and we'll take a look at his list real quick. So where did he end up? Right about here. So this was his list here, and yeah, so it was a Wakanda list running Cosmic Ghost Rider, and I was definitely terrified of the Cosmic Ghost Rider drop, so I decided to run a list that was kind of going to be, we're gonna run away from Cosmic Ghost Rider, and we're gonna try to deal with some of your other characters. We're gonna have some bulky models in here. Meanwhile, he went the opposite route. He'd had a couple games where his Cosmic Ghost Rider had faced down a Hulk and had just gotten absolutely pummeled by it. The board was pretty thick with terrain, so he was a little scared to put CGR on the table. So he just decided to go the complete opposite direction, and we ended up kind of this weird little list chicken thing we'd created where we both built a list to prepare for something we were worried the other was going to do, and then the other didn't end up doing it. So we both ended up kind of opposite lists here. So he had M'Baku and Black Panther, so he had both of the leaders in there. That brings him to 8. He had Beta Ray Bill and Hela, so that's bringing him up to 16, and then he had Shuri, which brings him up to 19. So he had a pretty wide list there. On my end, if I go ahead and I go back to my list here, what I ended up bringing here, my original plan was to have Sam as the leader, so I brought Sam. I had Iron Man because I wanted to have something like Helios Laser available if I really did need to just kill something. Notably, again, a CGR was what I was kind of expecting. So I had Sam, I had Iron Man. I brought Carol because, again, expecting CGR, this is a good model to deal with it, and similarly Crimson Dynamo, so that's 9, and then that was 6, so that's bringing us up to 15. And then I had 4 Threat left, which I realized was a very awkward spot for this list, and it's why I'm kind of considering swapping out Widow for a 4 Threat. because the 4th threat slot could only be filled at this point by a Captain America. So I decided to go with First Avenger just because he seems like he might be a little bit more sufficient without his own leadership. So I was kind of like, okay, that one will probably serve me better in this matchup, especially since I don't think bodyguards really do all that much against CGR with the ability to pull things around and whatnot. So I went with Steve, or Steve 3, and that ended up being very much the right call because once we put the models on the table, I kind of looked at his side of the board and I looked back at mine and was like, it doesn't really matter what leadership you go with here. You built a relatively, not killy team. You have a couple models that can punch reasonably hard, but at the end of the day, like this team is not going to be murdering me. I have models that are way too bulky for you to punch through here. So I went with the Steve leadership and was kind of like, well, if you're not going to be killing me, maybe I should try to be killing you. So I went with the Steve 3 leadership, and for once it actually did well for me. First turn we both kind of just grabbed our own points. He tried to steal my back secure on one side, but he left his own open, so we ended up tying points there. We both grabbed I think 3 senators and then one side point each. So we both ended up with decent 4-4 I would assume for the first round. Again, just going off of memory here. I had Carol on one of my formulas, and he had Beta Ray Bill. I'd put Steve kind of up front and center, but he had a nice piece of cover for the senators. So Steve was holding a senator, and so was Sam and Dynamo, I think, if I remember correctly, were my senator holders. And then I had Iron Man on a back Infinity formula because I really, really like him on Infinity formula when he's not under Steve 1. So, and then what he ended up doing was he had M'Baku go forward for one of the senators, and he actually took one of my back senators, if I remember correctly, and I had to kind of trade him with Sam. And then he had Black Panther dive the one that Iron Man was on. So that was kind of on the left side of the board. On the right side of the board, he just had Shuri and Hela grab the one as safely as they could, and Hela blasted a shot at Steve, which I think did like 1 or 2 damage. Nothing too crazy here. Because Steve did have cover and still 3 dice, so nothing too crazy there, but still a decent little chunk for him right out the gate. I wasn't able to get any licks in turn 1 like that. Might no, I think that's accurate. I don't think I was able to hit anything that turn. But going into round 2, I was able to start out really nice with Crimson Dynamo, just launching a couple beams into Black Panther and M'Baku. And of course, M'Baku is really, really weak to energy, so got a lot of extra free damage in on M'Baku there, which was nice. I also surprisingly did a good chunk into Black Panther, even though he counts blanks on that side. He was just taking them for some reason. So yeah, Crimson Dynamo again was doing really, really good on this side of the board. He ended up going with M'Baku next because he was worried he wasn't getting another turn, which is probably accurate because I had Iron Man there. And then I believe he ends up basically throwing Iron Man, doing a bunch of damage to him, but I think he left him alive. So what I ended up doing with Iron Man was basically I just blasted him with, I actually blasted, if I remember correctly, because I left him on 1. I blasted Black Panther with my homing rocket and used the splash damage to kill M'Baku, and then I basically grabbed M'Baku's senator and walked over to their Infinity formula, which was on a nice piece of cover and stuff like that I could kind of just hide behind and hopefully be safe from Black Panther. So that was what Iron Man did. And Iron Man, who at this point I think actually had 2 health remaining, he ended up surviving up there for way longer than he had any right to. And then we kind of flipped over to the other side of the board, and Carol, I don't think she did anything too crazy. She just kind of blasted a couple of shots. I think I might have went for some plank damage onto someone like Hela there. I don't think I took Hela down with her. Similar for Captain America. Captain America got shot a little bit more. He ended up going down to 2 health and bleeding. But he did get some licks out of his own. He did a couple damage to Hela and Shuri, I think. I didn't want to punch Beta Ray. I didn't want to give him any aggressives, but he did end up kind of walking forward and choosing violence into me. He walked onto Carol's Infinity formula and threw a size 4 truck at her. Carol blocked reasonably well, and then of course gained some extra power, which was going to allow her to pop off really big, which she would end up doing the next turn. Carol went really hard the next turn. She again, I didn't want to touch Beta Ray. I kind of figured he wasn't worth it, so I ended up taking down Shuri and Hela this turn. And then I ended up sitting on his back point with one of his freshly dropped senators. As for Sam the previous round, by the way, I think I just had Sam kind of come in and try and skirmish with Black Panther a little bit. I don't think too much came of that because I just basically wanted to contest my own back point again, and I might have played like a damage or two more into Black Panther there. But on that side of the board, once again, I basically tried to have Dynamo just do the same thing again. I think I ended up finishing off Black Panther here, and I put a good chunk of damage into M'Baku again. This time, unfortunately, I wasn't able to quite finish M'Baku. So he ended up living, and then he did his Wakanda Forever, and this was before Shuri went down and everything. So he had a really good Wakanda Forever. He ends up pretty much taking down everything on that side of the table. So Iron Man went down. Crimson Dynamo either went down or was activated, and wasn't really point like there wasn't really much point in hitting him anymore. I mean, he had a senator, but so did everyone else. So and then I think Sam might have went down as well, or Sam was out of position and was mostly spared, but didn't end up mattering for most of the round. So either way, he ends up kind of having some weirdly dead activations over there after the Wakanda Forever because he kind of got everything he needed to with the cards. So then he had just had some actions and no one really to reach to punch. So thinking about it, Crimson Dynamo must have went down because otherwise he definitely would have just punched me. But he ends up having Black Panther go, and he goes and steals Iron Man's point and basically reclaims his own back point. So he's got that side of the board pretty well, and this was kind of the turn where things almost turned around on me. On the other side of the board, I think he did end up taking down my Captain America. So he flips him. And yeah, this was then the round though where I think I took down Shuri and Captain Marvel. So or not Captain Marvel, Hela with Captain Marvel. So I was doing pretty okay on that side, and I ended up being able to like at least score similar to him this round. I think I was a little bit behind, but not by any crazy amount, so it was okay. Because I'd already had a really good lead from the earlier turns. So we go into the next round, and basically this was where Carol just absolutely popped off. She turned around and she took Hela out of the game, which of course Hela at this point had 3 souls, so I had to be able to double tap her, and then I put some splash damage into Shuri. On the other side of the board, Crimson Dynamo finished off, or actually, I don't even think I finished M'Baku. I think it was just M'Baku wasn't able to get any damage into me because I shocked him with Crimson Dynamo. So he just didn't end up really doing anything. I think I might have dazed Black Panther here, and that's why he wasn't super relevant this round. I don't remember exactly how that played out. But basically, Iron Man and M'Baku scored me a bunch of points on that side. Captain Marvel and Steve scored me a bunch on the other side, and Sam was just kind of running around throwing shields the entire game. So everyone kind of did their part, but ultimately, I think this one kind of just came down to that weird list chicken thing we had at the beginning, where we both ended up kind of building a list to counter the thing that the other person didn't end up bringing. It just so happened that mine was a little bit more able to switch into what he did end up bringing a little bit better. So it was a good game. He had some really rough dice, unfortunately. So a few of his models really didn't get a chance to shine, like M'Baku, and even Hela, I think, had some rough rolls at some point in there. So that was a little bit unfortunate. I know Beta Ray also kind of just flubbed a few rolls here and there, which wasn't great, but is what it is. It was still a really fun game, and he took the dice really well. So that was good. But yeah, so at this point, I'm 2-1, so I'm kind of happy with whatever goes for the final round here, just because 2-2 is kind of my, that's the place where I like to hit for most events. And then I got paired into Rob, and I've played against Rob in a few events in the past, and Rob's always a really fun game. He's a great player, great guy. Just he's one of those people that you go to these events and you have a good time just talking to about the game and just in general. He's a super friendly dude. So I was always looking forward to playing games against him. And this time around, he was bringing Emma Frost, and we got Paranoia Infinity Formula. And I don't even remember which one was mine because we both had those scenarios. But the final score there ended up being 17 to 10. This was, of course, the final round. So that was 17 to 10 in my favor. And we'll go ahead and we'll take a look at his list real quick, assuming it's posted here. Uh, there he is. He came in 8th place overall. And this was his list here. So, of course, his game plan here was Emma. And basically, he ran a really interesting list into me because he basically decided, what if we just kind of ran four, annoying, hard to deal with bodies, and it was interesting. So he had Emma, he had Colossus, he had Wolverine, and he had Captain Marvel. So I had to see one on the other side now, of course, which was a little spooky. Over on my end, I went the opposite route because we had such a wide scenario. I wanted to be able to kind of score up really quickly. I wasn't sure what he was going to be throwing. Obviously, Emma can kind of do anything she wants because her affiliation isn't really an affiliation. So I went for a Sam leadership because I wanted to go super wide. So I went Sam, Iron Man, or no, not Iron Man. I don't think. Um, yes, Iron Man. Maybe Iron Man. Yes, Sam, Iron Man, Luke Cage. So 9 threat. I brought in Gwen, so that brought me up to 12. I brought in not Captain America, Captain Marvel, bringing me up to 17, which I think was what we played there. Yeah, 17. So that was my list, and he actually had a really, really solid kind of deployment lead into me. I made some mistakes that might have cost me had things went a little worse for me in some of the earlier turns. But basically, there was this massive piece of size 5 terrain in the middle, kind of separating the board, and neither of us had great ways of dealing with that. I mean, we both had a couple models with flight, but otherwise, that massive piece of size 5 terrain really said, after we grab these initial paranoias, we're going to divide off into the two sides of the Infinity Formula B map, and we're just never going to interact with the other sides. Some models like Sam might have had the mobility to do it if they needed to, but it wasn't something either of us were expecting to come up very much. So that was going to be an interesting factor of this game. And the way the deployment kind of shook down, I put Luke Cage in the middle because he was going to be able to grab one of the paranoias and then hide behind the size 5 terrain, so he was going to be out of line of sight and relatively safe from anything that could have potentially hit him. He ended up going for Carol to do his middle grab because the middle grab for him, obviously with me having Prio here, was going to be on top of the terrain, so he was going to be visible. So he wanted to pick a model that, or at least my assumption is he wanted to pick a model that he was kind of okay with being punched a little bit on the first turn, which made sense to me. On the left side, this is where I kind of made some poor choices, slash I just kind of got unlucky with the way our order of deployment went. But I had Sam and Iron Man facing off against Colossus and Wolverine, which is a little bit of an awkward situation because Sam's shield can't push either of these. Obviously, Colossus just can't be pushed by enemy effects, so Iron Man's not pushing him either. So it was a little bit of an awkward side where a lot of my control was being denied. And then over on the right side, we had a similar situation where I had Gwen and Captain Marvel facing off against Emma. And of course, Emma also denies pushes, so Gwen was in a really awkward spot on that side of the board. So in general, it was just kind of a weird situation where I'm looking at this table and I'm like, oh god, none of my control is going to be relevant here. I don't know how this is going to go. And it started out fine. I ended up having Luke Cage pick up the middle point just fine. On the left side, I was able to grab the extra paranoia on both sides, but he ended up using the what's it called? The tactics card between fastball special between Colossus and Wolverine, and he threw Wolverine at Iron Man. Did I think after his attack he ended up with 4 damage into Iron Man because Iron Man got a really good block on his throw, and then he just didn't have a great attack roll into my not so great defense roll on the actual attack that he made with Wolverine there. So Iron Man ends up surviving on 1 health, which was huge for me because it meant I got both of the paranoias on the side of the board, meaning while he only scored 3 the first turn, I was able to get the bonus point because obviously his only paranoia was Carol, who wasn't in range of anyone because she had to double move to grab the point. So he ends up getting 3 from that. Meanwhile, I ended up getting something like 4 or 5 because I had two paranoias or 3 paranoias rather, plus the bonus points. That's 4 plus my 2 infinity formulas. So I guess I actually must have scored 6 on the first turn. Um, Going into the next round, he basically immediately dazed Iron Man with Wolverine, which was kind of expected, and he also put some plink into Sam. Using the daze, I was able to use leadership to kind of bring Cage into the fight, which was nice because Cage would end up walking in and basically just making sure I was able to hold my back point. And he actually threw out a stagger on Wolverine, which was nice. Otherwise, nothing really eventful happened on that side of the board. On the other side of the board, he basically moved Carol over to assist Emma there. I tried to get some planks around with Gwen, wasn't able to pull or push anyone because Emma does Emma things. And Captain Marvel basically just started blasting some damage into Emma and trying to build up some power so I'd be able to go binary in the next round. His Captain Marvel unfortunately did whiff an attack roll into Gwen, or less so he whiffed, more so Gwen decided to block 3 on 3 dice, which was kind of gross. He also didn't get the Wild Pursuit, which he needed to get Captain Marvel onto the Infinity Formula. So he was in this weird situation where he was definitely over on that side, but he wasn't on in the Infinity Formula, so he hadn't really gained any power at this point with Captain Marvel. So mine was definitely going to be hitting binary form first, even though his leadership was supporting his ramping up relatively quickly. But we scored pretty much status quo there. I scored 1 less than the turn before because Wolverine had stolen 1 from Iron Man. But for the most part, I'd been able to stay on all of my secures, and I was still grabbing the bonus point. So that all worked out for me. He did end up getting the bonus point as well this round because Emma and Emma and Captain Marvel were relatively close together. So we go into the next round, and basically I start out the round with a Helios laser onto his Wolverine. I wasn't sure if he was going to start with Wolverine on that side of the board to try and kill Helios laser by killing Iron Man, or if he was going to go on the other side with Emma, who was getting kind of low on health and might not have been long for this world. He ended up starting with Emma, and I think he actually might have dazed Gwen that turn, if I remember correctly, which was no big deal. It wasn't the end of the world there because I still had a lot of punching power through Captain Marvel. But yeah, I basically go ahead with my Iron Man, and before I did the Helios laser, now I totally forgot here that he had exceptional, but before I did the Helios laser, his Wolverine only had 1 damage on him. And I was basically like, okay, well, first I'll just blast you with a repulsor. We'll see how that does, and then we'll see if we need the Helios laser, right? Because maybe we'll spike or something. So, of course, that's exactly what happened. I spiked something like 5 damage, which would have left him on 1 health, which is, of course, the worst place to be when you have exceptional healing. So we did burn exceptional healing on the just regular Friday. I had repulsor blast, which meant when I turned around and I did I think I ended up throwing 16 power into a Helios laser that round. Wolverine just didn't stand a chance. So Wolverine went down there, which dropped to the objective. I was able to end up picking that up with Sam, and Sam scored that bonus point with Cage and Iron Man, and as well as just contesting my own back point. So I ended up having a bunch of points over on that side of the board. Of course, I already had a really solid lead at this point. And then going over to the other side of the board, he basically went an all-in move on Carol. He popped his leadership and was able to power up Carol to binary form just barely. He went for a spender on my Carol, did some good damage, left me on something like 2 health, I believe. But then he decided basically he would go for the builder and then hope to do 1 damage and then throw me into a wall, because at this point I'd already burned Brace for Impact on like a Colossus throw or something like that from earlier. So he tries to do that, and unfortunately his spender or his builder attack doesn't manage to do any damage. I got 2 wilds on the reverse pierce, so I was able to basically turn down everything that he rolled. So he had no successes going into me, so he was able to throw me still just to try and mitigate things, but it wasn't enough to kill me. It left me alive on 1 point. which was a big deal because then Carol just went and grabbed she basically just double moved and threw one of his characters off of the point. So I went and picked up Gwen's paranoia, and Gwen's corpse was still there to stop me from taking damage. And then I just moved back and chilled there. I think some point before this, Gwen might have also tried to use some plink into Emma just to try and finish her off, or bait her out of her mode where she can stop my pushes. And at this point, I had Emma down to like 1 health as well. So, the attrition was going relatively well for me on both sides of the board, and yeah, it was just not looking great for him. But at that point, it didn't matter because I did score to 17 that turn. I feel like I missed a round, or I combined a couple rounds in my explanation there. But like I said, I'm not going to be spending as much time on talking about each turn by turn because these videos are long enough as they are. So speaking of, that is the final round there. So it was a great game. There was some unfortunate dice on Rob's part. Again, that kind of seemed to be the moral of the story for a lot of the games today, which was a little unfortunate. It was, a lot of really, really skilled players, and a few of these just kind of came down to some pivotal dice rolls that didn't work out, whether, it was for me in the first game or for my opponents in some of the other ones there. So, obviously, all the games though, my opponents played very well. They played very clean, good games, and that was great. So it was a great time. It was a fantastic event. It was for a good cause. It was for a charity, of course. So that was great. They ended up raising a good amount of money, which was awesome. There was some cool raffles and stuff. I didn't end up winning any of those, but I did win one of the prizes, which was basically just for most victory points scored, which I definitely have to kind of attribute to that 22-point game that I pulled. So I did end with 71 victory points across the event, which was pretty awesome. I didn't expect to actually get anything for that. Of course, I go into an event like this where it's a bit of a shark tank of really, really high skill players. I don't really expect to walk out with anything other than like, random draws or something like that. So that was pretty cool. And fifth place is also, I consider pretty solid for an event like this. 3-1 and a bit of a shark tank. So I'll take it any day of the week. I think that's a totally great, totally fine score to be walking out of this sort of event with. So I'm happy with this. Definitely feels a lot better than my last event. My list overall is feeling really, really good right now. I was playing around with a Thanos in here, and I might play around with that again in the future, because he's so splashable now. But right now, I'm really just looking at this 2-threat slot, thinking I might switch her out for a different 2-threat, or I might switch her out for a 4-threat and try just running without a 2-threat for a bit and see how that feels. We'll see. We're going to play around with it, try some different threat values, see what kind of options we get. Right now I'm thinking either Voodoo or Spider-Woman probably as my extract dropper, but we'll see. I'm not 100% sure. Just, Spider-Woman's kind of burned me in the past. She's failed to do things for me before, and just kind of been in that spot where I never really felt like she was the right call. And Voodoo, I just feel like he lacks a little bit of mobility. He's also definitely burned me before in terms of not being able to do the things that he's supposed to be able to do consistently. Which is weird because I know he's technically supposed to be a very consistent model. I blanked out on him pretty hard a few times before, so we'll see. There's some changes I'm going to be making, hopefully going into the next event, which in theory is next weekend. So hopefully I'll be able to get one of these going up again next week. That would be actually really, really awesome. And hopefully next time with pictures. That's something that I know would add a lot of value to these videos. So hopefully we can get that going for future videos like this. But that is going to do it for this tournament recap. My voice is absolutely dead, and I apologize because you guys can totally hear that. But I appreciate you guys watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of this, whether it was tactics or just entertainment value. Yeah, I enjoy putting these together. They're a good way for me to kind of think back on my games and think about what I might have done, well, or what I did poorly, and think about which characters I was using and how I used them, and stuff like that helps me kind of improve myself with the game. So the fact that some people are able to watch and enjoy and hopefully get something out of these videos as well is just kind of icing on the cake at that point. But yeah, I do appreciate you guys watching, so thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please do drop a like down below. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. I'd be amazed if you made it this far into the video and you're new to the channel, but I am impressed if you did. We're going to be continuing to do more of these tournament recaps as we're back in a tournament series. If you're also interested in the more kind of competitive side of things, I do also do weekly kind of character spotlights where we just go over a character, we talk about some synergies, weaknesses, and combos, that sort of thing. So that's something we've been doing every week for a little bit now. I've actually got like 4 loaded in the chamber for the next few weeks, which is super awesome. So if you like that sort of stuff, definitely stay tuned for those. And of course, battle reports. I mentioned it at the very beginning, but we do also do battle reports every weekend here. So yeah, if you're into that sort of thing, feel free to subscribe and stay tuned for stuff like that. But as far as this video is concerned, that is going to be all. So first of all, happy Halloween, everybody, because that is, I guess, tomorrow at time of upload here. So that's great. And of course, the Halloween special battle report came out, I guess, yesterday at time of upload. It's today for me right now, but yeah, so that's pretty cool. Hope you guys enjoyed that. I was really happy with the board and stuff for that. The game itself, I'm not going to spoil anything, but it was a little swingier than I would have liked, but it is what it is. Sometimes that's just how the dice flow. But yeah, it was fun. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. And yeah, that's gonna be it for here. I've said that like 3 times at this point. I apologize. It is late, but I don't want to make this video go any longer because we are past the hour mark here. So yeah, last time, hope you guys enjoyed. Until next time, have a great day. Peace.